The only thing I prayed for was to be a major league player, and it came true. I didn't crash any records, but I played 10 years in major leagues, and that's something to be proud of, said the former Red Sox player to a reporter in 2016. Some work to make it to the major leagues, others hope to make it to the major leagues, while some dream. This kid took it a step further and cut to the chase, and he prayed to the Almighty. I guess that's what he's there for. But if every kid prayed to make it to the big show and play with Ted Williams, how would that work? I don't start my shows with quotes, but what I liked about this one is that it fits with what would turn out to be the overriding theme of this channel: perseverance, talking about the trials and tribulations of what ball players go through in their career, many of whom were also soldiers and husbands. I delve into their lives in a personal way with respect. And it's out of respect I do these shows about players who took a minute out of their day back in the 1950s to make my dad happy by signing his autograph book. My brother Ed came up with the idea for the autograph segment. I came up with the name, Held by Legends, Signed by Heroes, meaning my dad's autograph book was held by both. There's a few types of legends and different types of heroes, and I've been doing shows on men who fit the description of both, even if they are only local legends. At the very least, they were dedicated coaches, mentors, and teachers, most for decades. Some of these now former players came closer to making it to the major leagues than others, even though some made it only to watch the game from the dugout in their big league uniform and never got in. The old close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Some players went back and forth from the minors to the majors. Then there were a few who made it and had successful MLB careers. I call them all heroes because what they did what they wanted to do, even if they didn't make it to the pinnacle of their baseball career. And there's something to be said about that, doing what you want to do, even if not totally successful. I'm referring to making money, not fame and accolades. A hero to me is somebody who does what they do for the love of it. Doesn't matter if they're the best at it or not playing for the cash, but for the love of the game, and for as long as they can, like in the olden days. And those that watch this show know which olden days I'm talking about, the golden era of American sports. So let's go back, like I do on the show, to the olden days. And today we'll meet up with Thaddeus Stanley Lepcio, nickname Ted, infielder, MLB debut, Boston Red Sox opening day 1952, starting at second base alongside his roommate Jimmy Piersall, who's playing at shortstop. Both had a nice opening day. Both are 22 years old, both in the majors, and both in the lineup playing on a Red Sox opening day with one of the 10 greatest players of all time, Ted Williams. That's where the similarities end between Ted Lepcio and Jimmy Piersall, because one of these players lost his father as a child, yet grew up to be a well-adjusted person from Utica, New York. The other, a waterhead from Waterbury. But as it turns out, the mental case from Connecticut would be the two-time Gold Glove winner, and he would be the one who participated in 2 MLB All-Star games, and the guy who was hospitalized, poked and prodded, and most likely bipolar. That guy, he's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. But if it wasn't for the guy from Utica offering help and occasionally bailing out the walking mess from Waterbury, that nut job might not have accomplished all that he did in his career, because Jimmy's own teammates might have put an end to it before it even started. And a few tried. Because from what I read, there were times Jimmy had it coming to him. Getting back to the boys' opening day, the rookie Ted had a nice day after striking out in his first MLB at-bat, lined out in his second, but in his third at-bat, Ted got a single and then stole second and was in on a double play with his roomie, Jimmy Piersall. Ted Lepcio attended Seton Hall University and would play a little semi-pro ball in Juanita, New York, before being signed by the Boston Red Sox as an amateur free agent in 1951. And except for his first and his last season, played every year in the big leagues, never once going down to the minors, with Ted's best season being 1956 when he hit 15 home runs, with 9 of those homers hit during an 18-day stretch. For 8 seasons, he was a utility infielder for the Red Sox, playing in at least 50 games every year, with the last 3 years of his career picking up a few jerseys playing for the Tigers in '59, the Phillies in '60, and 2 jerseys in 1961. He played for the Chicago White Sox and the Minnesota Twins. A nice moment for Ted came at the end of his career when he was wearing one of those brand new Minnesota Twins jerseys and one of those cool Twin Cities ball caps. It was on July 13th, 1961, when Ted Lepcio hit a grand slam in the first inning of Cleveland Indians Mudcat Grant. It made the difference, and the Twins won the game 9-6. The 1961 season was the Twins' first and Ted's last. He retired to New England and went into the trucking business, where he was VP of sales and would remain active, keeping himself in baseball by chairing many Red Sox events and attending games. Ted Lepcio passed away December 11th, 2019. Back in 2005, Ted Lepcio joined former Red Sox teammates at center field for MLB's opening day, and he watched as Boston's World Championship pennant was raised, and Ted Lepcio was there in 2007 for that celebration, riding around in the Duck Boat Parade through downtown Boston. And it wasn't too long ago. If you went to a game at Fenway Park, you might see Ted Lepcio signing autographs in Autograph Alley and reminiscing with fans young and old, both excited to meet a big leaguer. The young probably has no idea who the old guy in a Sox ball cap is, and the other, he knows who Ted is because he used to watch the old man play right here at Fenway more than 50 years prior, and watched him play alongside the other Ted, Ted Williams, as well as his crazy with a capital C roommate, Jimmy Piersall. Held by legends, signed by heroes. We'll wrap up this show by getting back to my intro, talking about different definitions of legends and heroes. Just like there's a difference in the definition between a roommate, a teammate, and a friend. It's been said and written by Jimmy Piersall himself that Ted Lepcio was all three. Jimmy talks about this in his book, Fear Strikes Out. Sometime during the 1952 season, Jimmy had to be hospitalized because of his mental problems, and more than once that season, Ted Lepcio had to save Jimmy from himself, and way more than twice, save him from getting his lights punched out by his own Red Sox teammates. And there's no doubt there's probably some good stories about players on the opposing team also wanting to punch his lights out before, during, or after the game, waiting in the parking lot. But if Ted Lepcio was there, he'd try to put a stop to it. Now, that's not just a good friend, that's a good person, because I'm not sure everybody would get involved. Ted Lepcio said he had no regrets, but was only thankful for the friends he made along the way, and felt fortunate to play with one of the greatest players ever, Ted Williams, and then become his friend. Some who make it to the big show will never forget that once-in-a-lifetime experience of your first big league training camp. For this particular rookie, add to that an extra special moment that only a few players in baseball history get to have. The man of the moment said on the very first day of spring training camp, Ted Williams picked him to be his warm-up partner. I don't have to imagine the high the rookie was on the rest of that day and into the evening, something he would remember for the rest of his life. That night, making phone calls to family and friends back in Utica, telling them how it went on his first day at camp, being picked to play catch with Ted Williams. All the while, his roommate, Jimmy Piersall, overhears, or perhaps not. Maybe Jimmy's only hearing voices in his head telling him to get out of bed and walk around the motel looking for something. Maybe quiet, poor guy. Then, when it was time for Ted Lepcio to hit the sack and lay his head down on that motel pillow in Florida, it must have felt so good that night. Probably felt like a dream, as he gets into that boat and starts to drift off to dreamland, thinking about tomorrow. But before he starts to drift too far into the night, he's startled awake because of a loud commotion in the hallway. Ted looks over at Jimmy's bed. No Jimmy. Ted now has to get out of bed, and he already knows what's on the other side of the door. Jimmy causing trouble, then getting into it. And Ted Lepcio, being the good person, teammate, and unfortunately Jimmy's roommate, would once again have to save Jimmy from himself and others. That's when reality sets in for Ted, and he knows he's not dreaming. As he opens up that motel door in Florida and probably saying to himself, "Here we go again." Each day, Ted Lepcio would go from one extreme teammate to the other. One was warming up with the splendid Splinter, the other was trying to cool down his roomie. I'll end this show with the younger Ted talking about the legend he shares a name with. Ted Lepcio said the greatness of Ted Williams was not in his stats, but with the feeling that he had. As long as Ted Williams was in the lineup, the Red Sox had a chance to win.